Here's a list of 10 shows that you can't legally stream, but you should seek out anyway. Props to Mother's Basement for pointing out that the original Fullmetal Alchemist, Silver Spoon, and Serial Experiments Lane are no longer streaming, which is what inspired this video. I'll link to his in the description. Number 1. Beast Player Eren. This was one of the first shows I watched when I got a Crunchyroll subscription in 2013. At that point, it had been out for 4 years, and I'd heard a lot about this soothing adventure story that was also an epic dive into the history, culture, and warfare of a fantasy kingdom. The show follows Eren over 50 episodes as she grows from a young child into an adult woman who has a special connection with the Toda, kind of a cross between a dragon, a griffin, and a fluffy owl chick. There are people in power who want to use her abilities with the Toda for their own desires. And at the end, Eren will have to make some decisions that will affect the course of her world's history for generations. Some people criticize the art style for being simplistic, but I like the use of lots of solid blocks of color. And even though the animation can be a little sparse at times, the story is really well done. This is one of the better series from its decade, and it's a shame that it's been about a decade since it was available for legal streaming. Number 2. Birdy the Mighty Decode. Speaking of classic 2000 shows that you haven't been able to stream in a while, Birdy the Mighty was one of the best science fiction shows of that decade and used to be a streaming staple. Birdy is an intergalactic police officer who tracks a criminal to Earth and engages him in an epic laser battle. An Earthling bystander named Tsutomu accidentally gets his body ripped in half by Birdy's laser during the fight. Fortunately for him, Birdy has access to advanced alien technology that can rebuild his body. But unfortunately for him, this means that the two of them will have to share the same body in the meantime. Both people will be fully conscious while living in the same body, and only one will have control of that body at a time. Whenever each person is controlling the body, it will change to look like that person, so Tsutomu can continue going to school, and Birdy can continue her alter ego's modeling career, while occasionally coming out to fight intergalactic crime should the need arise, which it often does. I have no idea why this one has never come back to streaming, other than maybe the license holder is just asking too much money for it. Sure, it's got violent scenes at times, and Birdy wears some pretty form-fitting outfits, but that's anime. There are a lot of series that are much more graphic in nature. The show also has an excellent English dub with Lucy Christian as Birdy giving maybe the best performance of her career. Imaginative, original sci-fi is a precious commodity, so I wish more people had access to Birdy the Mighty. Number 3. The Eccentric Family Season 2. The Eccentric Family Season 1 is still streaming on Crunchyroll, and while it doesn't get talked about a whole lot anymore, there was a time when this was one of the big underground hits for people who were really into anime, and it still holds up today. It follows a family of Tanuki in a reimagined version of modern Tokyo, where creatures from Japanese mythology coexist alongside humans. Since the Tanuki can shapeshift, they spend most of their time in human form, well, most of them do anyway, but they have to watch out for the members of a certain club in the city who like to celebrate the new year with a bowl of Tanuki stew. The show follows Yasaburo as he tries to outsmart the club members and a lot of the other mythical citizens, while trying to figure out if the mysterious and beautiful Benton is a friend or a foe. It's got fun character writing and gives a unique twist on some of the Japanese mythology surrounding creatures like Tanuki and Tengu. The second season is pretty widely regarded as the lesser of the two, but it's still a very enjoyable continuation of the series in my opinion. The problem is, of course, that most people nowadays wouldn't even know that a second season was made, because there's no indication on Crunchyroll that it ever existed, even though they did the simulcast when it came out in 2017. So be aware that Season 2 does exist, even if you might have to act like a sneaky Tanuki to see it. Number 4. From the New World. I use English titles for anime on this channel, but you'll see the Japanese name for this show a lot, Shinsekai Yori. This is a great show, but going into it blind has some pitfalls. I think it has one of the best opening episodes of any anime, but that opener sets up some expectations plot-wise that don't match the rest of the show. You see how society has changed violently as people evolve some dangerous psychic powers, which brings about this bloody apocalypse that overthrows modern civilization and sends the world into chaos. Then we flash forward several centuries into the future, and the show sets up a story with cool psychic powers inside a mysterious city with plenty of secrets and intrigue. But what makes that episode so amazing is then almost instantly taken away. The kids get taken out of the interesting city and have their psychic powers sealed. The story you think you're getting is replaced with a dozen or so episodes about talking mole rats fighting each other. However, around the 2/3 mark, we get an incredible scene that has my favorite use of music in any anime, and a final act which restores a lot of the initial promise back to the show. By the time it ends, you've gone through quite the roller coaster, but you've also watched one of the great anime shows in the fantasy genre. Not everyone is going to have the same experience that I did. For some, it's great from start to finish. For others, it's not their thing. But it's definitely an original tale that is worth seeking out, whether or not it ever returns to streaming. Number 5. Ah My Goddess. Ah My Goddess is a comedy with some legitimate laugh-out-loud moments and a main couple who are possibly the most wholesome pair in anime. And that can be a problem for people. If you're familiar with the anime trope of two people who are clearly into each other, but they get super nervous and start shaking when thinking about holding hands, that's this show. Keiichi Morisato is your prototype nice guy protagonist who's given a wish from a goddess named Belldandy. Without thinking about it too much, Keiichi blurts out that he wishes Belldandy could stay by his side forever. And so his wish is granted, and Belldandy starts living with Keiichi, attending classes with him at the local university, and using her magic to occasionally get him out of a jam. Of course, this setup isn't exactly fair to Belldandy, and a lot of people have problems with her portrayal as a fantasy girl who cooks and cleans, is always kind and sweet, and who dotes on Keiichi every moment of his life. But Belldandy is also a powerful figure who often takes the role of saving or protecting Keiichi. And when the show gives her an opportunity to leave Keiichi, she decides to remain with him by choice. Besides, the real reason why you should watch this show is for the hilarious motorheads in the Automotive Club and the A+ dub. Ah My Goddess has a weird history on streaming. It used to be everywhere, especially for years on Hulu, where you could see Season 2 as well as Season 1 and its specials. Later you could find Season 2 a lot, but not Season 1. Now none of the seasons are legally available in the United States. But if you want to watch a funny and wholesome rom-com with one of the most famous waifus of the 2000s, then Ah My Goddess is a good one to seek out. Number 6. Haibane Renmei. I think you can still rent this off of Apple Plus for $2 an episode, but the series itself is not included in any US streaming service after being regularly available on Hulu and later Crunchyroll for many years. It was also one of my top 5 favorite anime of all time for several years, and it's probably still in my top 10. Haibane Renmei is not fast-paced or action-packed, but what it does have is creativity and heart. I was fascinated watching this unusual world unfold before my eyes, where children from around 6 to 16 show up in a village that's isolated from the rest of the world. These children grow a small pair of wings on their backs, and they're given a golden halo soon after awakening, which makes them look like angels. It is heavily implied that these children have died, and they're in some midway point in the afterlife. But again, this is never directly stated, and you can form your own opinion. The main story is a redemption arc where we follow Raka from her arrival in the village to learning about the world, losing hope in herself and her situation, and eventually finding a resolution along with fellow Haibane Reki. Personally, I prefer the sub, but the dub's not bad. If you want a show that's creative, emotional, and thought-provoking, then check this one out. Number 7. Castletown Dandelion. I would put this show in the good but not great category, but it's a shame that it's not streaming anywhere after a decade of being a staple on free with ad services like Tubi. I really like the main conceit of the show, which is that the king of a small nation is going to name an heir, and he wants the public to vote for which among his 9 children should get the job. One quirk about the royal family is that they each have some unique supernatural ability, such as the ability to control gravity or to turn into an alter ego of themselves. And this makes the show a little more fun than if it was just 9 random kids having a popularity contest. While I definitely found the ending to be anticlimactic, I did enjoy the process of learning about each sibling, picking a few favorites, and cheering them on as the day of the vote drew closer and closer. There were only 1 or 2 of the 9 characters that I didn't really care for, and most of them I kept thinking, you know, if they became king or queen, I'd be fine with that. Plus, Kanade is exactly what I'm looking for in an anime crush, but your mileage may vary on that front, of course. This is one that I would expect to become available again sometime in the future, but you never know. For now, you'll have to go through alternative routes to find it in the US. Number 8. Seiyu's Life. I'm kind of baffled why Seiyu's Life isn't currently streaming. It's a show from 2015 about 3 young women trying to break into the voice acting industry. And it has a very cute art style, with a heavy reliance on pastel colors that works well with the general energy of the show. The main character Futaba is easy to root for, but all the main cast is likable, and it's fun to see the chemistry they develop as they get grouped together for a voice actor podcast called Earphones. Seiyu's Life used to be available on several services, Hulu, Funimation, HIDIVE, Crunchyroll, and the fact that it's a Sentai licensed title with a home release available would normally mean it would be a no-doubter on HIDIVE. But the management of HIDIVE has been pretty chaotic lately, especially since they closed down the streaming service from a lot of global markets. So occasionally you'll see titles like Seiyu's Life disappear without a warning. Sometimes they'll show up again after a few years like Shirobako, and sometimes they'll just drop off the service and stay off, like Hakume and Mikochi for now. More on them later. but I actually learned quite a bit about what it's like to be a voice actor in Japan from Seiyu's life. And the cast and story are also pleasant, if not extraordinary. If you want a fun and cozy show and have the means to watch Seiyu's life, then check it out. Number 9. Hakume and Mikochi. I saw this show on High Dive last year and started watching it out of curiosity. I'd never heard of it before, but after about 2 episodes, my thought was, why has nobody told me about Hakume and Mikochi? It's a slice-of-life anime in an original fantasy setting with its own interesting world building, characters who are complex and well-defined, and writing that is thought-provoking and elevates the entire experience. I'm not even sure what kind of creatures Hakume and Mikochi are, but they're like little bite-sized hobbits living in the woods outside of a more established port city. They interact with lots of talking animals, bugs, wolves, badgers, and so forth. Hakume is a journeyman carpenter who's trying to catch on with the local builders guild. And Mikochi is a well-respected cook, seamstress, and soap maker who seems to be good at almost everything she tries. The world they live in is charming without ever feeling childish, and it has quickly become one of my go-to slice-of-life shows when I want the anime equivalent of comfort food. I had to buy the home release in order to see the final 3 episodes, because High Dive yoinked it off a service before I could finish, and it hasn't been put back. I suspect that it will be back at some point, but for now it's unavailable to stream. But it is one that I highly recommend if you want a slice of life show and are able to find this one. Number 10. Encouragement of Climb, Seasons 1 through 3. Encouragement of Climb is a fun series about cute girls doing cute hiking things. It follows high schooler Aoi, who's basically an inside cat at first, as she learns about the outdoors world with her friends Hinata, Kaede, and Kokona. Encouragement of Climb Next Summit came out in 2022. It's the 4th season of the show. This season wraps up Aoi's arc of challenging Mount Fuji by setting her to try to scale the mountain once again. To prep for this final resolution, the first 4 episodes of Next Summit are recaps of the first 3 seasons of Encouragement of Climb. I don't mind that the makers of the anime decided to give the viewers a recap of the previous seasons, especially for new viewers who hadn't seen the show before. But the problem is that they seem to have made the decision that these 4 recaps are now the only versions of these stories, and that no other version must exist. This means that the first 3 seasons of Encouragement of Climb have been erased from streaming, and I doubt that they will ever return. There was 5 times more content in those original seasons by runtime than what we get now, and if you like the show, that's a big loss. I tend to ignore a lot of arguments for piracy because they usually boil down to, I want free stuff. But examples like Encouragement of Climb show why you also can't just say it's illegal and leave it at that. Anime deserves to be preserved, and I am much more comfortable with letting the community decide what gets preserved, rather than relying on a corporate rights holder to always make the right choice. The people who worked on the shows in this list deserve to have their work appreciated. I'll put a list on the screen of any shows that have Region 1 video releases if you're more comfortable buying the Blu-rays or DVDs. But if you find alternative means to watch these shows, then no judgment here. There are more shows that I could have mentioned, so let me know if you'd be interested in another video like this one. Also, tell me if you know of a show that's worth recommending that's no longer on streaming. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.